Looked like Blake Middleton from the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota, where the heat is about to be on this weekend. It's going to be on in a lot of places. Blake. Bob Walker is even hotter in North Texas. John Abbott saying greeting Fozy from the farm. He did his video from Weymouth. Peter Taylor, greetings from New York City. How now, brown cows? That's a Bannero. Christopher Gillingham, ahoy, Tom, Julia, and the Fozy. Good to have you back, Tom. Thank you, Peter Stevenson, Pedro, a.k.a. Pedro Foiling Sailor. Clark Chapin, with whom I spent some time in Michigan, where it's sunny summer-like in Plymouth. David James, I'd like to say, first of all, well done, Lewis Hamilton. Yes, indeed. Let's get this show through the starting line. See, Jody's making fun of us. Good day from Wanji House, San Fran, after my little rant about calling it San Fran. Christiane Price is in Sydney, soon to be Marseille. Yeah, they're headed for the Olympics, where their daughter Olivia and our Fozy will be yacht racing for her country. Yeah, it's good to be back, Blake. Thank you. John Emmett spent the week in Weymouth helping out the British sailing team with medal race practice, which is the theme of his video today, and show number 723 for Friday the 12th of July. And indeed, it really is good to be back, Julia.
Oh, it is.
It's hard to do the show remotely.
Yes.
You know, I carried as little equipment as possible. I was going to stick a picture in here of my half-ass studio in the cottage.
In the cottage.
In the rental cottage at Portage Yacht Club. But this is fine. It's just good to be back with you. We could have done our little sing-along. You had a tough morning trying to get to a doctor's appointment that didn't happen. And you were when I went up to get you because your morning lady left early, I came up to get you. You were in a foul mood.
I was.
So what did we do about that?
Oh, we sang "You Are My Sunshine."
And we waved our arms around.
Yep.
And we tried to get back in the spirit. And what did I put? Hold your coffee mug up, Julie.
Yes.
What did we put in your coffee?
Just a little
A little bit of Clayton Embly's bourbon cream.
bourbon cream.
Bourbon cream. Try to get us all back here on the same page. Welcome, everybody. Show number 723 for Friday, the 12th of July, the 24th. Alan Long will be moving the boat to port here in Michigan on Tuesday for the MAC. They have a record turnout, Clark Chapin tells me, of record entries for the Bayview MAC. That's the Bayview Yacht Club in Detroit from Port Huron, where they start the race up on Lake Huron, up to Mackinac. Bravo Zulu for everybody involved in that, including and especially Alan Long. Gordon Smith, Julia, I like the modern print blouse.
Thank you very much.
It's a dress, isn't it?
It is a dress.
I asked her, Gordon, if she wanted the golden scarf, which we keep in the control room right there, just in case. And she said, no, it doesn't go with my. Ryman is checking in from Cape Town. Welcome back, Tom and Julie. We're great to be back. And we are in Studio B here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. I normally at this point turn on the lower thirds, and as if you don't know who we are, there's Julia, the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, my co-host and coordinating producer. And of course, we are at BSYC. Oh, BSYC. Oh, that's the yacht club for me. You just pay your dues, and you sit and drink booze at the meetings of BSYC. Nobody knew we were going to open with that, including me.
Including me.
Right? Including me.
Oh, well.
It is great to be back. I ran this on my Facebook page last Thursday because Clark Chapin, at the last minute, was able to organize some informal racing for us at my home yacht club in Michigan. I was there for almost 2 weeks. And we were not expecting to be able to race on Friday, the day after our 4th of July here in the U.S., but Clark kindly arranged it. So I asked all of you, do I skip it, the show Friday, and go yacht racing Friday afternoon? Easy decision. See you next Friday, the 12th. That's today, because I was en route. I was traveling, of course, on Tuesday on the way back. Clark kindly lent me his 1317, Interlake 1317, the 18-foot, originally designed by a guy called Francis Sweisguth.
What a name.
A good German name, eh?
Yes.
Who designed it as a trainer. It's a hard chine boat, looks a little bit like a big snipe. Designed it as a trainer for the for the Star class, as a starboat trainer for the Great Lakes. The boat's been around since, I guess, the 30s. And there are, as you can see by the sequential sail numbers, 1,300 plus of them around. And that's Clark's boat in the lead, being sailed by myself and Alfredo Partible against my sister, who's crewing for another PYC, Portage Yacht Club member. It was good fun. And then we did our informal racing on Friday as well. And I managed to win 3 out of the 5 races. And I suppose that's not saying a lot, but for an old guy with a bad back and who hasn't sailed in a small boat in a year, it was good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, strong line by the bat. And the too much kicker. There was no kicker. It was just so light, John Emmett, that everybody's criticizing my sail trim now. Yeah, it's just the sails. Everybody uses one mainsail, and they're set up for more kind of moderate breeze and all-purpose main, as you would say. But we did have good fun. The boat is a classic and a lot of fun to sail. I did sail my dad's boat, too, a little bit. Blake Middleton, it also looks a bit like, it does look like an X-boat. It looks a lot like an X-boat, which is the Scout Country's junior trainer. ILY, Interlake Yachting Association, is the major youth boat that he started on. Mm-hmm. Emmett didn't mention the spinnaker. Well, again, it was... God, I'm never going to show another picture like this, Julia. I feel... Maybe
for a reason.
I feel terrible.
I know.
Huh?
Yeah.
I feel terrible.
Yes.
So sorry, really, that's unfair. But it's very light. I had a newbie crew who I taught him just before the race how to fly a kite. Let's go fly a kite up to the highest height. You don't know what that's from?
No.
Mary Poppins.
Oh, yeah?
Our British friends will all know that. And young people like Blake Middleton. Just ignore them, Holtzman is saying. It's a great boat.
And it's fun to sail.
It's fun to sail.
S-A-L-E.
The fact that you've been in the lead absolves you of any critique. Yeah, to be fair, now we're explaining the tactical situation here. We're coming in to a leeward mark that's just out of frame to the left. I've been holding, it's a light air night, it's a dying northwesterly, and the puffs come down, and the people behind get the puffs first, and the accordion, the concertina, as somebody would call it, closes up. And I want to be marks to port inside on the rounding. So I am actually soaking down below the guy. I'm letting him get air forward, air on me. I don't care if he goes to windward of me. I just don't want him to go to leeward and get an inside overlap at this pin, at the leeward mark, because it's then just a very short windward leg up to the finish, and I've got to be to that mark first to win this race. So I'm soaking down. We're a little too flat. My weight's too far aft. Yada, yada, yada. You can see my sister Christine in the rear boat doing a nice job on the kite. And we're more worried about getting the kite down and being sure this guy stays to windward of us so that he doesn't get an inside overlap. Is the fleet normally larger than 2 boats? Yes, Stingray. But sailing has really trailed off at our home club. What used to be a couple hundred power sailboats is now a couple hundred power boats. And they don't get, except for regattas, they still get a couple dozen boats out for regattas. But on the Thursday evening sailing, it's pretty thin. I think we had 3 or 4, sometimes 5 boats in our class, and then there's another class, the Flying Scott class, had a few more. Okay, enough of all that. Clark Chapin took that photo, and sadly, at least I could use his boat, he was running the races that night, so we didn't have him on the water. I also sailed my dad's boat. I'll probably be the first and last person to sail it this year. We promised him as our guest on a Friday show until we went off yacht racing last Friday afternoon, and promised him telling us about the invention. He really invented or conceived and then developed the original version of the 720 rule, which was called a 1080 rule. And in lieu of that, of having him on the show live, because we didn't do a show last Friday, I have recorded a segment that we will air later in this show with my beloved father, Tom Eamon Sr. That was the last look at Portage Lake from the yacht club. You can see how many power boats and how relatively few sailboats there are up on the hoists there. And that is looking to the north on Tuesday morning just before we went to the airport. And it is DFAC. Julia, do you know what DFAC stands for?
Nope.
Dead flat calm. Dead flat ass calm.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know if you use that expression in your neck of the woods, but we certainly use it at our home club, Julia.
No.
Yes. That doesn't even deserve a finger wag. That's
it's sailor talk.
turnkey party pontoons. Yes, the pontoon boat on the lake that rarely gets more than if we get a half a meter wavelet, that's it. David Blake Middleton is saying sailing has not tailed off at Wayzata Yacht Club up in Minnesota, still on the average of 113 boats every Thursday night.
Wow, great.
It's fantastic. Clayton Embley, whose bourbon cream you're drinking, Julie, in your coffee, I can see the smile is getting bigger on your
and bigger. Right.
your face. You're already in a better mood. If you like sailing an interlake, you would love sailing a Celebrity. Yes, it's a Celebrity is quite similar as well. Okay, anything? Hola from New York City, Larry Kennedy, the head of the bimbos in that part of the world. The Brotherhood of International Mark Boat Operators, I think is what that stands for. Mm-hmm. Tuesday morning, dead flat calm. Just a little bit of I had to put this in. One of the foes, he sent this to me this morning. Proof, he says, of collaboration between Donald Trump and President Putin. Get it? You get it, Julia?
Yes.
Last night in the press conference, when President Biden referred to Vice President Kamala Harris as Trump and introduced Zelensky to the NATO conference as Putin.
Right.
Okay, left, right, or center, you got to think that's funny. So that's contemporary news. We thought we'd put that in. And speaking
John Emmett says, who are they?
Yeah, he knows who they are. Speaking of contemporary news, you've got current affairs. You've got to the gaffes have it. Chris Exley says you got to give this kid, what is he, 21? All of 21. It could be a big Spanish weekend because there's also not only Wimbledon men's final, the gentlemen's final on Sunday, but Euro 2024 with the Spanish in the finals of that and Copa America finals make for a super Sunday of sports, to say nothing of Sail GP going on here in San Francisco. This from ABC News just before we went to air. Start with the men's single finals at Wimbledon and then take the Soccer European Championship title match between, and you all tell us in the comments who you think's going to win, Spain or England. Spain looks pretty darn good to my untrained eye. Before finishing the day in Miami with Copa America, this Western Hemisphere soccer showpiece featuring Argentina against Colombia in the finals of that. From London to Berlin and all the way to Miami over the course of 13 hours, it's quite the day of top-class sports to enjoy. I'm sorry that he did not mention Sail GP. Yes. Quite the cast, too, because Alcaraz had already, when I grabbed this, Alcaraz had already won his semi. And those of you who watched that, I mean, it was astonishing. I don't know how old's Novak? How old's Djokovic? Because for as old as he is, he came back. He was down. He won the first set, and then he was down in the second set by, I think, 2-0 or 3-0, came back and won it in a tiebreak.
Wow.
And then went on to win the third set. And the guy's just a machine. Mm-hmm. And he gave a great press conference. It was very impressive. And that should be a terrific final on a repeat of last year's Wimbledon final. We'll be watching that, the gentlemen's final, Alcaraz versus Djokovic. Emmett has got his fingers crossed for England. Mueller does as well. Clark Chapin and Bastille Day in France to boot. Yes, that's, is that today? When is that? Is that Sunday?
The 14th.
14th. So that's Sunday as well, Clark. Thanks for that. And I don't know if anybody's cheering for Colombia, But yeah, the 14th banner was reminding us. Thank you. Julia,
Sir.
what are we celebrating today besides your bourbon cream and your coffee?
I don't know.
We are celebrating. You see the clue there.
The yellow
It's
paper bag.
It's World Paper Bag Day.
Oh, good.
And, you know, the plastic bags, even though they're semi-biodegradable, they must be cheaper because every time, as I did yesterday, I go down to Chestnut Street once a week to go to the market, and they always try to put my stuff in plastic, even though they know I'm there. They know who you know.
Yeah.
I said, please, paper, papel. I speak to them in Spanish. Maybe it's my terrible Spanish.
Yeah.
Papel, please, because it's so much better for the environment, especially for those of us who spend any time on the water. So it is World Paper Bag Day, and it's observed on the 12th of July every year to spread awareness of the use of the environmentally, I would have said, friendly alternative to harmful plastic bags. Millions of people use paper bags every day, readily recyclable. Paper bags have been around for many years. American inventor Francis, it's a German name, Wolle, received credit for his patent of the first paper bag machine the year after AC0.
Oh, you got to remember that.
It dates back to 1852. Another bag inventor, William Goodale, there's a good English name, I guess, received his patent on July 12, 1859. His was designed to cut the paper such that it was ready for folding.
Aha.
Not to be outdone, Margaret Knight became known as the, quote, mother of the grocery bag after she designed the square flat-bottomed bag and the machine that would fold and paste them in 1870, the year of AC1, the first defense of the cup. Over the years, other inventors have received recognition and patents for their inventions of the devices that improve the paper bag or its bloody production. Who cares? But it's the fact that it ties in back to the start of the America's Cup, I thought was somewhat interesting.
Yes.
Gruber says Connecticut has banned plastic bags, but most places charge for paper, go reusable. Yeah, they charge both for paper and plastic here in San Francisco and have, I think, among the first cities in this country, if not the world, to do it. Jody Shields pointing out that July 13th, tomorrow is World Rum Day.
Oh, good.
I would have celebrated that if I'd known that, since everybody down under is probably, let's have a what do you call it?
That's not too late.
A toddy. We got to have a
not
rum.
too late.
You want me to go out and grab you some rum and add it to your coffee? And
Not right now. No.
Clayton Hembley, that's why my ex-mother-in-law was wearing one this morning, a bag dress. Every day should be Rum Day. Christopher and Jane Gillingham are saying. Had Clark pointing out that plastic bags are not really biodegradable, but they are low-density polyethylene, LDPE, and can be recycled, but they tend to gum up grinding machines for higher density polyethylene, so LDPE must be processed separately. Ding, ding, ding time. Go ahead and say it. What, that the certain non-sailing CEO, I'm going to say it at the end of the show. I'll say it twice, and you all can have That's what we're celebrating today. We're also, as well, always celebrating our FOSI. Thank you for your support, whether you watch the show, whether you're a frequent guest or even a one-time guest, and especially those of you who give us a few bucks a month via Patreon. Become a patron, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Much appreciated. And we like to start with a Bravo Zulu, and we're doing just that today because we've got the Governor's Cup coming up. Normally we do a bunch of these Road to the Governor's Cup segments leading up to the Gov Cup, which starts a week from Monday down at Balboa Yacht Club. We haven't had time this year. I've been on the road. Andy Rose has been on the road. I spoke with him this morning. Maybe we're going to get Andy on the show.
Oh, good.
On Tuesday to help give us a rundown.
Good.
So, Julia's already dinging along.
I'm practicing.
Alistair Murray, say goodbye to my mate Louie, best barman in Amsterdam. Oh, I remember Louie. Alistair, from your, tell Louie that we know who he is because you've shown him before when we did segments about the Mets in Amsterdam, the Marine Equipment and Trade Show, whatever that's called. Julie Ahrens is signing in. Hamish Ross down in Auckland. I spoke with Hamish yesterday or the day before. Plastic in the seas is one of the greater world issues. You would be surprised how much plastic washes up on the most remote beaches, probably at his batch in New Zealand.
Well, it's all over the South Seas, though.
In the South Seas.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Clark Chapin says, I saw Russell Coots interviewed on CNBC about the business case for sale GP. Yeah, there was a good, Julia said, and I by the way, I got a video of that CBS piece you were telling me about.
Oh, good.
Yesterday morning on CBS, CBS This Morning or CBS Morning?
Sunday morning.
No, was it Sunday? No, it was I thought you said you saw it on the show yesterday, not Sunday morning. Doesn't matter. But cheers to everybody who's on. Let's give you this quick Bravo Zulu for the Governor's Cup, which is the 22nd, starts officially Monday the 22nd, runs through Saturday the 27th of July. It's the 57th annual edition of the Governor's Cup, patterned after the Congressional Cup, which, of course, is the senior match racing tournament. They both started back in the mid-'60s. The Governor's Cup, hosted by Balboa Yacht Club. The Congressional Cup just up the beach a little bit at Long Beach Yacht Club. And they're terrific events. This junior event, youth event, has been going on for almost as long as Con Cup. We now know the full list of entries because the U.S. Youth Match Racing Championship for the Rose Cup has now been done and dusted a week or so ago, and it has been won by another Newport Beacher, if that's the right word, Beachite, a great sailor from Newport Beach, California, Newport Harbor Yacht Club, Morgan Pinckney and his team of Peter Barnard, Samantha Hemmons, and Kelly Holtis. These are good sailors. I know their parents are good sailors, and it's great to have that team back having won the Rose Cup. I think they would have gotten an invite from Andy Rose and the team at Balboa Yacht Club regardless. But that event is starting a week Monday, and it is an incredibly good lineup. 3 Aussie sailors, Daniel Kemp, Cole Tapper, Marcello Torre, who sounds Italian, but he's really from Perth in WA and a great character. And then Nicholas Bernal is back, the Lightning World Youth Champion from Brazil. Tom Higgins is back from Ireland. He and his team didn't do well last year, but they got another year of match racing experience under their belts. And he and his team are terrific, Julia. They're terrific gentlemen.
Yep.
When Andy and I came docking in the Sunday night before the whole thing started, they were down at Balboa Yacht Club. We come over in the Duffy, the little electric boat from Andy's house, and they were all lined up in their blazers and nice, pants and topsiders to welcome Andy, to the club. Hey, we're here. Great to be here. They're such gentlemen. And it'll be great to have Tom Higgins and his team back. Likewise, Josh Hyde, Robbie McCutcheon, and Robbie are terrific sailors, both capable of winning this thing. They're Kiwis, of course. Justin Callahan, who was in the Final Four last year, along with Cole Tapper and Jeffrey Peterson and Morgan, he's back. And Justin is, and his brother presumably is crewing for him off now a year of collegiate sailing, and they're top-notch sailing for Harvard. Sienna Nichols, Julia, you remember we did an interview of her. I interviewed her over at St. Francis when she was up here racing for another match racing tournament, an event, and she will, at age whatever she is, 16.
Yeah. So really,
and doing fabulously.
Yes.
So she's in this, and I don't think she's going to win it, but when I asked her in that interview, hey, Sienna, are you going to be cheering for Jeffrey this year at Governor's Cup? And she said, well, I hope I'm racing against him. Little did I know.
Yes.
So bravo Zulu to her, as well as Jeffrey, who's the defending champ. He's actually won it
2 times.
2 times. Can he three-peat? A whole host of people have won it twice. And the question is now whether Jeffrey can win it a 3rd time and be at the top of that multiple winner heap. Andy Rose has only won it twice, and he's still cheering for Jeffrey to win it. Set a new standard. Morgan Pinckney, we mentioned, also from Newport Harbor, he's back. And Dylan C., who I don't know, and I don't know much about, but I'll ask Andy talk about him. Another great young up and coming match racer here from the U.S. of A. Pindar is back and forth with Hamish Ross. They're still on the plastic. David James saying it was startling how much plastic there was halfway to Hawaii. Ted Ryman saying plastic has been detected in the Mariana Trench, which of course is the deepest place in the ocean, I believe, here on this planet.
There are whole groups of people organized to try and fish that out.
Well, and the gyres, these big circular areas out in the middle of the Pacific and the Atlantic and elsewhere where this stuff is all accumulating. And by all accounts, anybody that's done Transpac or any of these other transoceanic races just say that you go near those gyres, just say it's horrific.
Yeah, Mary Crowley out of here has been doing that for about 20 years, and people are just now.
Well, and it's worse than that because apparently we all got plastic. I saw a story the other day that men have plastic in not only their organs but in their reproductive organs and their testicles and God knows what else. So that's not a good look, Julia.
No.
It can't be good for the species. So yeah, we got to deal with it. I think for some of us that seems like that's a bigger, what's the word I want?
Threat.
Bigger threat to the human race than some of the other things people go on about. Alistair says that Louis remembers us. He recommends you were more fun when I was a drinker. Everyone says that, and I hope that's not true, but it could be. Mm-hmm. Could be.
Yes.
What other comments before we go on? Andrew Pindar. By the way, Pindar submitted a video to talk about the Olympics, and in conjunction with that article.
Oh, yeah.
Which, while I'm thinking about it now, before we go on to the Olympic segment with John Emmett and co., but this showed up on the front page of our San Francisco Chronicle the other day, above the fold, as they say in the newspaper business, on the Sporting Green, which is the San Francisco Chronicle sports section. Bay Area sailor hopes to save amazing sport, quote unquote. And this is a story about Hans Henken and Ian Barrows, who are our 49er, men's 49er reps. And this is in a series of stories in our local paper, in the San Francisco Chronicle, Julia, about Olympians from the Bay Area. And these are two who are members of St. Francis Yacht Club. You said this morning.
Yeah, there's one on Daniela.
On Daniela Moros. Mm-hmm. And we'll try to get that also teed up. But this, I mean, when I saw this, I thought he's talking about saving our sport. What a Bay Area sailor, maybe he was doing something with Sail GP. But his assertion in this article is that Olympic sailing is in deep trouble, that Olympic sailing may not persist. And he thinks that, of course he would, that Olympic sailing is terrific. He makes quite a good case for why Olympic sailing is good. Mm-hmm. And this is something we're going to bring up and debate, thanks to Andrew Pindar, who sent a video. And I didn't have time to, we got so much going on with Sail GP and so on. But next week, I'll run this article, and I'll run Andrew's video, which is very thoughtful. I did look at his video this morning, Andrew Pindar, and it'll get us all thinking about what we can do. First of all, is it a big problem that the Olympics maybe are not going to be retained? Sailing, that is, in the Olympics, may not be retained. Is that true or not? And if sailing in the Olympics is in trouble, and I think we have to look at it as if sailing is always in trouble and always be trying to improve our sport, not throw it away to television. But anyway, it's a valuable topic, and we're going to talk about it some more.
It also points out who really is supporting the Olympics
in this article.
Yeah,
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. We should always try and improve our sport, Emmett says, and I totally agree. I'm sure everybody on here does. Exley saying, I sailed the Flip-Flop Regatta with Ian Barrows back in 2022. Amazing sailor and fantastic person. David James, who's local here across the bay, across the bridge in Sausalito. It was a nice article, thoughtful for a change. You agree with that, Julia?
Yes.
It was thoughtful, wasn't it? Speaking of thoughtful, let me go back and wrap up now that I've done that tangential little segment on the Governor's Cup, because it's really is in and of itself a terrific field of young sailors They cannot have turned 23 by the start of the regatta, I think, is the rules. They keep changing, and I think that's the latest iteration of the rule. There are the 2023 results, and you can see, if you compare lists, that the top 4 are back, which is unusual because usually somebody in the top 4 ages out from year to year, but not this year. So fully 8 of the 12 are returning from 2023, and 6 of those 12 are, in fact, in their last year. So they're 22 and will age out. So this is a hell of a good experience, tough field, and I think this will be a fabulous event coming up. As usual, we'll be doing television. I'll fly down there next weekend, and we'll start live with Monday night. We're doing, 10 shows in 6 days or something like that. Monday night, we do 8 p.m. We go live with the Meet the Teams introduction after the big dinner with 300-plus people into the tent. Andy Rose hosts that and introduces and roasts nicely. The kids now are so good at it because they've seen this now. And even kids that haven't been to Gov Cup before can watch the replay from last year, and they prepare their own rebuttals to Andy. That's Monday night at 8, a week from Monday on the 22nd. Tuesday, I'll do our regular Sailing Illustrated show from Balboa Yacht Club remotely, of course, and Christine Gribben, the regatta chair, who's done this for nearly 10 years as regatta chair. Andy calls her the regatta chair for life. She does a fabulous job. She will be my guest, as always, on that Tuesday show. Wednesday through Saturday, we do pre-race morning shows at 0900, featuring the principal race officer and the chief umpire and the kids and Andy, and we'll interview a couple kids each morning. And that's every morning, Wednesday through Saturday. And then Friday is racing, live racing. That's the end of the rounds robin semifinals, and that gets us through to Friday night, when we will come back ashore and have the semifinal press conference with the 4 semifinalists live at 7 p.m. It's all Pacific Daylight Time, of course, 7 hours earlier than UTC. And Saturday, then, 11:30 live racing again, followed by the winners' press conference and the award ceremony live from Balboa Yacht Club, the 12th through the 27th. Should be a fabulous event. It always is, and perhaps even better than ever this year. I hope you'll tune in. Hope you'll join us. And by the way, just like this show, I do watch the comments, even when we're out doing the live television. And if you want to leave comments, we do this on Balboa Yacht Club's YouTube page, Balboa Yacht Club's, or the Gov Cup's YouTube page, and the Gov Cup's Facebook page, Gov Cup Racing. And I'll promo those some more. But you leave comments and I'll read them because the kids like them, the parents like them. And as you know, Julie, we do this for the parents and the families.
Absolutely.
Back home of the kids. Jay Rendell up in Minnesota. I can send you an article I wrote about our White Bear Lake Olympic sailor, Lara Dahlmann-Weiss, the German name. And yes, Jay's been kindly trying to get me teed up to do an interview with them, and we just haven't found the time to add to our Olympic discussion next week. She's not available this close to the Olympics, understandably. And Jay, thanks for your superb efforts to try to make that happen, and we just couldn't make it go this go around, but hopefully they'll have a good regatta, and maybe we can talk to them down the road. Clark Chapin, Hankins said his sport requires a brand new boat every 3 events. Yeah, that was alarming, which usually means 2 boats a year. They mean major events. Hans Hankin meant major events. New sails are needed at every event. He estimates the annual budget is upwards of $300,000 US before coaching costs, which could push it to $500,000 a year. That's that article. And it's pretty amazing, especially when you consider sailors, unlike some of the other sports, really don't have any income potential at the other end, Julia. Okay, any other salient comments here? Okay, yeah, the 49er has got a bit of a durability problem, which is why we so like the Laser and used to like the Finn and the Star, boats that you could use campaign after campaign even. Okay, let's talk about the Olympics. We're to John Emmett's segment. The Olympics starting, it's hard to believe, in 14 days.
Wow.
As Emmett is saying, Ben, meaning Ben Ainslie, Sir Ben Ainslie, used his fin hull for multiple Olympic cycles, Julia. Paris Olympics, meaning the Marseille Sailing Olympics, starting in 14 days. A bit of another disturbing story. I don't know if this is clickbait, but it was in Le Monde this morning, thanks to one of our Fozy who sent it. Paris 2024, why the Seine's high flow rate threatens the game's opening ceremony. And apparently heavy spring and summer rainfall has swelled the river and its tributaries, as well as the 4 artificial reservoirs. Can you name those, Julia? I can't.
But I read that's been in the news all week.
Has it?
Or before, yeah.
And apparently the flow means that the heavy rainflow means that the current through the river is quite a bit faster than it normally is, going to upset the opening ceremony schedule because the boats will go through there a hell of a lot faster and hopefully they won't crash into each other. Ceremony scheduled for July 26th. So what is that, 2 weeks from today? Could be adapted. I think something was lost there in the translation. A quote from the article, the flow may indeed, quote, pose problems for boat speed and maneuverability. Terry Reboul, how do you say that, Reboul? Paris 2024's director of ceremonies told Agence France Presse, the AFP, on July the 4th, quote, what we need to avoid is the Seine going above 500 meters per second. I think meters cubed per second. That must be a flow rate. The boats are no longer going at 9 kilometers per hour, but at 12 kilometers per hour. Could we have that knots, please? That's what, 4.5 and 6?
Nobody would know it.
Well, it's half of that, isn't it, basically? Yeah. The smooth synchronization of the river parade with the show on the quays would be disrupted, and the event manager said. Ryman, that's insane. On the River Seine.
Perfect, Ted.
Then Bannereau is saying apparently the river's cleaned up a bit now, thanks to this rainfall. I don't know how the rainfall cleans the river up. I thought it would be the opposite.
But there was a comment about that.
Right.
Yeah, no swimming in the lake.
Well, that's been the problem for the last X many weeks.
Yeah.
But supposedly now it's cleaner.
Okay. I hope so.
I'm not going to go swimming. The extra flow will shorten the opening parade. Hurrah, Gruber. I wonder how many cycles future Greek king used his dragon. Yeah, that's a good question. Future Greek king. Former Greek king. I think he only used it once. The river's clean now until the protesters all poop in it, Gruber.
Oh, gosh. Oh, you guys.
That came from our Fozy, Matt Suzuki, who is from the States originally, spent some time here in San Francisco, and now lives in the north of France. Thank you, Matt, for that. Which gets us to John Emmett and his coaching corner. Fairly brief video for John, who was in Weymouth, and in a new locale in Weymouth that we've never seen. Have a look.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. I'm here at the Noath Fort in Weymouth, and the plan was just to talk a little bit about medal racing. And the reason I think this is so important is because we seem to be going from a format of consistency to winner takes it all. And that means last race, whoever crosses the finishing line first is often going to be the champion. And that seems to be an increasing trend we're having at the moment. And just looking back, I mean, Weymouth, there's some pretty fond memories here for the medal race for me. So rightly or wrongly, that's the way it's going, and sailors need to deal with that pressure. Oh, hang on a minute.
What's happening here? It's bloody John Emmett. Hello, John. What are you doing out here?
I'm just recording for Sailing Illustrated. I think I'll turn this off now.
I'm doing exactly the same thing.
Well, that was slightly unexpected. I think.
See you, John.
See you, Alistair. I think I'm going to carry on talking about sailing under pressure, because this is the thing that will differentiate the exact positions that people get on the podium, and it's the biggest crossover for sport. You know, it's the skill which is transferable from match racing in slow moving boats, which are incredibly close together, incredible number of boat handling manoeuvres, and you're always under pressure. You could be sailing a sail GP boat, far fewer manoeuvres, but there's a huge amount of pressure. In fact, if you get something wrong, it could be very serious. And that's true across all sports, the ability to perform under pressure. And how do you achieve that? Well, some of it is a natural temperament. Some of it is actually a mindset thing. So it's something you work on with your mental coach. People are very familiar with physical coaches, but to have a mental coach to help you learn not to worry about things which are beyond your control, and actually to enjoy the pressure, because pressure is a privilege. And as I said, I think across the sport of sailing, mental toughness is incredibly important, because it's hard to think of any sport that has, let's say, more uncontrollables. And that is probably why we love it so much. If you haven't done already, please let us know what you're sailing, where you're sailing, who you're sailing with, because that's really good to build that sailing community that we're all a part of. And wherever and whatever you're sailing, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun.
Oh, he got the whole claim in, Julia. And he got video bombed, photo bombed by Alistair, an AAAA. Now, to be fair, Julia, I have, and remember we did on our last show, I don't remember if it was in Michigan, I think it was in Michigan, but it may have been before that even. Alistair's been in London. He went to the RORC.
Yeah.
He had dinner with Andrew Pindar and Andrew McIrvin. And then since then, I've gotten several different cool photos, and I think even videos from Alistair. I just have, haven't had time to piece them together and put together a segment for another AAAA. But you now see that Alistair Murray, the president of Australian Sailing, for those of you who don't know, has gone down to Weymouth to meet with John and hang out. That was fabulous.
It was. It really was lovely.
And now he's in Amsterdam with his favorite barman and watching the show. Chris, back and forth here, but we'll do that. We'll do a future AAAA with everything that I mean, there was a fabulous picture that I didn't run in the show that they took outside of the RORC. I put it on my Facebook page of them and their girlfriend spouses, and it was fantastic. They had a great time. And it's nice. You know, these are people the two Andrews knew each other, but Alistair had never met them in person. I don't know that he's ever met John Emmett in person before this. No. So good stuff.
It's lovely.
Good stuff. Yeah, Stingray says, I love that what John bumped into this time. Pressure is a privilege, great perspective to maintain. Pressure is a privilege. Well done, David James. I was ILCA 6 sailing this week from the Weymouth and Portsmouth National Sailing Academy, and everybody's agreeing. And I just want to go back to Gordon Smith's comment. Is it still on the? Yeah, it's right up at the top there. And Gordon, I love what John bumped into this time. And he's saying, that's what Stingray said, rather. But Gordon is.
Yeah, I like. Why do so many like to downcry excellent initiatives?
Well, exactly, and I'm not downcrying it by any means, Gordon. I just, they got a problem, and they've tried it, and I really hope it sorts out.
Yeah, because it goes on to say, why shouldn't Paris want to show off their city? I look forward to whatever they decide to do.
Exactly, and we love Paris. I love Paris in the springtime. I love Paris in the. That's our third song this show.
Ooh, good.
Julia. Okay, and Yarvahi knew where John was shooting that, and of course that is John Emmett and the coaching corner for today. John Emmett sailing Get to the Front of the Fleet. One other note before we leave John. His wife, Lily, has been sailing in the Aegean 600. This race out in the eastern end of the Med that has been fabulously, not so fabulously, famously windy and rough. A bunch of boats dropped out. There were a couple people that went overboard, one of whom was injured so severely that they have passed away. And I believe Lily's boat dropped out and they motored back to a port somewhere. She's fine, but at some point maybe we'll get a report from her on the Aegean 600, which was apparently a
really rough.
and tough.
I didn't hear what happened to her Bermuda race.
I think she was fine. She didn't. I don't believe she won, but we'll get an update hopefully from John. Tommy Balboa soon. Yes, I'll be down there next weekend, Tom Fishbeck, having lunch at the Chicken Coop, thinking of you. And Julie, Crooners Illustrated. Okay. Thanks, John Emmett, for that. And that gets us to our main segment today. We're at 46 minutes into the show. And, of course, that is Sail GP. Today, Friday, is press conference day. This morning they had a press conference. Julie, I'm trying to watch the financial news because the markets are, as my dad says, you must be farting through silk. I've used that expression before. The Dow hit an all-time high. Did the NASDAQ hit a high as well? In any event,
it was close, but I didn't see the final number.
But good stock market up, and I'm trying to watch the market. I'm trying to watch the Wimbledon semifinals, both semifinals. I'm trying to prepare the damn show and watch Outer Ridge, and the who had the biggest. It was poignant. It wasn't necessarily the biggest news, but Outer Ridge says San Francisco is probably an end of an era. Predicts Spain to make the grand final. And that was, the most interesting thing perhaps in that press conference. Actually, what was even more interesting was that, because it was pretty dull, frankly, to be fair, it was pretty dull. And I think the most interesting thing was that Graham Sweeney, our Fozy Graham Sweeney, sent a question in. He typed in a question in the comments, and they used it.
Wow.
And he said to the effect, he said, Taylor, why are you doing so badly? And what how are you going to come out of this slump? Taylor Canfield, the skipper, the driver of the American team. And it was the only really tough, good question of the whole thing by our Fozy Graham Sweeney. He got right to the point. I texted him and said, hey, they used your question. And he said, well, what'd you expect that? I was going to ask something croutonic, soft and croutonic.
Yeah.
So Graham Sweeney, he submitted a question. It was a good one. But back to Nathan for a sec. Nathan, and this was the headline coming out of the press release, according to Sail GP, interim Switzerland driver and two-time championship runner-up, who's, by the way, with his Swiss team on the bottom of the rankings of the leaderboard. Nathan has said this weekend's grand final in San Francisco marks the end of an era. Outer Ridge, who previously led the now-defunct Japanese team, is currently standing in for permanent driver Sebastian Schneider, who will return to lead the squad, that is the Swiss squad, next season. This means San Francisco marks Outer Ridge's last event for the foreseeable, and that obviously means foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. Now, whether he gets a drive next year, and he said very, again, poignantly, I don't have a drive. I don't see that I'm going to have a drive, but I'd sure like to have one. He's an Aussie living in New Zealand. He's the B driver, I guess you'd call it, for Emirates Team New Zealand in the America's Cup. So, he's got a plate full, and he's a hell of a good sailor. Grew up next door to Jody Shields, Wanji, up there in Australia. So we shall see. But that was Nathan on today's press conference on the dais. He predicted, as I said a minute ago, that Spain will be the other finalist along with New Zealand, who's in for sure, and probably Australia. They're in second place in the leaderboard, and if they do well here in San Francisco tomorrow and early Sunday, they should get through to that winner-take-all $2 million.
Wow.
$2 million final on Sunday. Also this week, SailGP, and they reinforced this at the press conference, their season schedule has been released for next season, and here's the video.
I rose this morning, dark skies
I don't know about you, but I thought that was just a average to below average video. I don't know why, but we'll save you all from the video. And here is the list. Starting in for the first time. They're starting, well, not for the first time. It started in the UAE this year. In the UAE, 23 to 24 November. We'll have an explanation for what they're trying to do here in a minute from Julian DiBiase, who's their COO. New Zealand then in January, Australia in February, then here in the USA much earlier, well, at least San Francisco's earlier, LA in March, San Francisco in later March, then down to Brazil in May, then back up here to New York in June. They hope they get some wind there. And then in the UK in July, Germany in August, Italy in September. They've had an Italian event, but it looks like they're going to have an Italian team as well. Will Jimmy Spithill be involved with that? We shall see. Switzerland for the first time in Genoa in September, then Spain in October, Andalusia and then Cadiz. And coming soon, another Middle Eastern venue, finally wrapping up also in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi. So they've got fully 1, 2, 3 venues in the UAE. Talk about sports money. I won't use the sports washing expression because I'm not sure that's what this is, but those are, as John Emmett points out, good times for wind in the I think he means the UAE. Ryman is happy that they're in Great Britain. Fritz Mueller says Geneva will be a tough venue. Yes, it will be. It's often light there, especially that time of year. How much is still costing Larry? I'm watching less. I'm going to have some interesting facts and figures for you in a moment. Yes, I meant his he meant the USA, not the UAE. Or maybe he did, and he says 3 USA events. Okay, John, well, that's the calendar. And that's what's coming up next year, and they're trying to get it all into one calendar year and not have the seasons overlap from 2024 into 2025. In 2025, they're trying to push all the events into 2025. Now, that's putting some teams at risk, and this has been widely bandied about in the media, and SailGP makes no bones about it. An excellent article, by the way, by Richard Gladwell showed up in just the last little bit here today, in fact. Canadians in fight to survive into SailGP Season 5 and recover the Halifax venue, because you will have noticed there was no Halifax venue in that list, no Canadian venue in that list, despite the popularity of that event. Richard goes on, Richard Gladwell writing, of course, he's the New Zealand editor for sail-world.com. Canada SailGP fans have taken to social media reacting to Halifax's exclusion as a venue for Season 5. Soon after the announcement of next season's venues, the team issued a media statement saying that they hope to get Halifax back on the SailGP circuit for Season 6. However, first, the Canucks must avoid being one of the teams being cut from the competition after this weekend's Season 4 grand final in SF. 3 league-owned teams were given notice a fortnight, 2 weeks ago, that with 2 new privately owned teams joining for Season 5 and only 11 boats available for 12 teams, one would be axed. The Season 5 schedule, as you from the Commonwealth would say, announced last Monday, has 3 of the 14 events in the Middle East, despite the region not having a team in the SailGP League, Julia.
Uh-oh.
You did a little click, click, click there of your lips.
I did.
No finger wag, though. Is that sports washing? Is that going where the money is?
I think so.
I think you could be right. Okay, now I've got a video because this caused a bit of a stir in Canada, including on several TV
Not far
networks.
from where Stephanie is Halifax Harbor, where SailGP was held last month. The Hydrofoil Racing Series has released its schedule for next season, and a quick look reveals Halifax is not on the list. In fact, there's no Canadian stop, despite the success of the East Coast race last month. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness looks into why the city was dropped from the Global Sailing Tour.
After hosting a record-breaking event, Halifax's Sail GP race will not be returning next season.
The event in Halifax last month was a record-breaking success.
Today, organizers released the list of host cities, and Canada is not included. Despite 50,000 spectators taking in the races, setting a record for fastest ticket sellout and most boats watching on the water, the city was left off the Season 5 calendar. Online criticism was swift. Ouch, no Halifax. A slap in the face, and stupid decision not to return among the comments. The fact the U.S. has races in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York next season is also raising some eyebrows.
They do have 3 events, and we don't have one next year, so that is disappointing, and it is something that we question.
We were disappointed.
Sail GP and the city did have a 3-year contract, with each side having the ability to opt out. Local organizers say they'll now look to bring the races back in 2 years.
The Sail Nova Scotia board is confident. We're going to work hard. We're going to engage the stakeholders. All the government stakeholders want it back in 2026.
That's where the focus is now.
But we have a saying in sailing, which is we can't change the wind, we can just adjust our sails, and that's what we're doing.
And hoping to chart a course back to where Sail GP was so successful. And Todd, Jennifer Hall is optimistic about securing team ownership for next year, which could lead to a return of a race in Canadian waters. And she says Halifax would, of course, be choice number 1. Now, Todd, there is precedent for Sail GP to skip a city and return. They just did that in New York. So there is hope to see another race here in Canadian waters. And I'm told, Todd, those discussions are underway as we speak.
Okay, we'll see what comes of that. John McGuinness on the Halifax waterfront.
Now, I think it's great. There's such enthusiasm in
amazing.
Canada, and particularly in Nova Scotia. In fact, our Fozy up there, Morris Stevens, there were 50,000 fans at the Halifax event. Yeah, and of course they had that windstorm and they couldn't get the boats in, but that wasn't the locals' problem. That wasn't Halifax or Nova Scotia's problem. But, they got to get a team. And there's Russell's obviously putting pressure on them to get a team. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they will. Let's see what other comments. Sail GP has also announced, thanks, Stingray, at the press conference this morning, they've announced practice events in Bermuda for, was it Bermuda? Because there's no event in Bermuda next year. And the UAE, all teams invited ahead of the Season 5 to start. That's trying to get the other teams up to speed, the Germans and the Swiss and the Americans, who are not getting enough time on the boats, or so they argue. Chris Exley, double standard, disappointing. I don't think that the UAE has the abysmal human rights record that the KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, does. Clark Chapin saying, I think the UAE is a much more modern, pro-Western type country, and I've been to Dubai anyway any number of times, and for sure we were very well received, and the Dubai International Marine Club was quite good. Replying to Clark, it's not great, but no chopped up journalists. Yarvahe referring to the situation with the alleged situation with, I don't even think it's alleged, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia doing what they did to the journalists in the Turkish embassy, right? The Saudi embassy in Turkey. New York, an unfortunately light air summer might not be exciting, Blake. Well, they had pretty good breeze, actually.
Did they?
This time. Yeah, it was, they had the southerly, so they had pretty good. So Richard goes on in his article, Richard Gladwell. Now, you know who this is? We'll tell you here. That's Justine Bieber. So that's the play on the words of Justin Bieber, the pop rock star. And apparently Justine Bieber, we've talked about this before, is the mascot for this Canadian Sail GP team. Gladwell, Richard writes, a complete economic impact analysis is underway, and this is a quote from the organizers. A complete economic impact analysis is underway, will be released in the coming weeks. On average, SailGP events across Season 4 have contributed to U.S. $18.9 million in regional economic impact, as independently audited by Deloitte, one of the big, what are the 3 or 4 accounting firms now? Quote, the Halifax event alone increased our social media following by 107,000 followers. Jen Hall, who's I know well, having done a couple cup campaigns with her, told Portia Clark, the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corp's radio's information morning host, quote, so that's what we can do, and for sure the support that we have in Halifax and across Canada helps us increase the valuation of the team. It's a team effort. Attracting the number of followers on social media sometimes means staging stunts outside racing, like skipper Phil Robertson, who, by the way, is a Kiwi, dressing as Justine Bieber, the team's mascot, and helming their F-50 wing-sailed foiling catamaran. There's an up-close shot of Phil Robertson, the Kiwi, helming their Canadian cat. Justine Busy Beaver, Gordon Smith is asking. That's Justine Beaver, the team mascot, which I guess is funny. So just to wrap that up, it was a great scene up there. I wasn't there, of course, but Maura was. And by all accounts, it was a terrific event. And Jen Hall believes the dropping of Halifax as a venue, which some on social media claim had a 3-year contract with the league, which apparently they didn't, was attributable to the uncertainty over the ownership of the Canadian team. There's no question that's the deal. The team has performed well and lies in 5th place on the Season 4 points table, ahead of several teams stacked with pro sailing rock stars. The team is for sale. Jen Hall told the CBC's Portia Clark, and it goes on and on and on. So they've got to find an owner for the team. The league doesn't want to continue to own that team, Julia.
Yeah.
And they're trying to put a little pressure on them. But we don't have to go into all that. But Phil Robertson from NZL said it was the best Canadian sailing event ever.
That could be.
And that could be. That could be. But I have a suggestion for them. If they want to help sell the team, if they want to develop even more interest, and they want to get some backing, these teams need to have truly national teams. Phil Robertson, who's a great sailor and a great guy, I know him, not really well, but he is terrific, and he's been very good for this team. And the journeyman that he was, helping various other teams, including originally the Japanese. They've got to find a top Canadian sailor, driver, skipper, helm, and then that will help a lot. That is what will generate Canadian national interest in the team. Jeff Ogle is on saying, with all the Canucks in show business, they can't afford an owner? Ask Deadpool. Okay. Now, but wait, there's more, because on today's Tip and Shaft, that free email newsletter that comes out from France every Friday that I commend to you regularly on the show, they interviewed a very cool guy, Julian DiBiase, who's Swiss, who was with our BMW Oracle Racing America's Cup teams for at least 2, maybe 3 campaigns. He has been now, since 2018, the COO at SailGP. He's been Russell's right-hand man, a lieutenant. And he's a really good guy. He's no BS. He's typical Swiss, well-organized. Sometimes you don't think he has a sense of humor, but he does. And he did an interview with the aforementioned Tip and Shaft today. Season 4 of SailGP draws to a close on Saturday and Sunday with the Grand Prix of San Francisco, which will culminate in the grand final, as you all know, between the top 3 finishers in the ranking overall. And Tip and Shaft took the opportunity to talk to Julian DiBiase, SailGP's Chief Operating Officer is his correct title. And the headline is, SailGP is aiming to break even at the end of Season 5. So those of you asking questions about the finances, pay attention here. How would you sum up season 4, he was asked, which is about to come to an end? It's been great. Okay, what else would you expect him to say? We've managed to deliver more events than planned in our development plan. We've been in cities that have welcomed us beyond our expectations, and we've had some fierce competition with several different winners, 5 of the various Grands Prix, and indecision right up to the end for the 3 teams that will contest the grand final. The aim, Tip and Shaft asks, the aim has always been to have a homogeneous fleet, but 3 teams are well behind. The U.S., bought out during the season, which led to a change of crew, Germany, and Switzerland. How can you make them more competitive? It's true that some teams, Debian says, or Julian rather, says, are a bit stuck at the bottom of the rankings, even though they are led by some very good skippers, like Nathan. See, he calls them skippers.
Good.
Like Nathan Outeridge, who joined the Swiss boat during the season, or Eric Heil for Germany, who has an impressive track record in dinghy racing. There are 2 questions. The first is whether the rest of the crew is at the same level as the helm, and the second is linked to the fact that apart from events, the teams don't have a boat at home to train on. So we, SailGP, we're trying to develop strategies to deal with this. Firstly, by giving more training time to those who need to catch up. Secondly, we've developed an in-house simulator, yada, 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 which has recently been made available to enable them to train when they're not on the water. Finally, our aim is to have an extra F50 that could be used solely as a training platform between Grand Prix races. But as you heard Stingray mention in the comments, they are also doing some training camps next year.
That's a smart thing to do. They really need to do that.
They really need to do that. Julian DiBiase goes on. The question is, you have just announced the calendar for season 5. What are the prerequisites for hosting a Grand Prix? Well, the strategy is to go as far as possible to countries where we have teams, like the UAE, not. Then to find cities where we have good wind conditions, but also where the topography lends itself to holding the event. So if possible in the heart of a city with regattas close to the seaside or the shoreside. We also have a more stable calendar. The idea would be we also have cities who want to come back, so we're trying to sign contracts for several years to establish a more stable calendar, The idea would be to have the final in the same place every season and to visit the same towns to create a habit among the fans. What's more, we're gradually moving back to a calendar that follows the calendar year. For season 5, we're taking advantage of the Olympic Games, the America's Cup, they're obviously in the latter part of this year, to start later, specifically in November of this year, finishing in November 2025, and then we'll have a season from January to November with a 1-month break in December in future, he means. And Tip and Shaft's final question, let's finish with the team. This is, by the way, this is an excerpt. It's a much longer and quite interesting interview. Let's finish with the teams. How many will be at the start of season 5? The field, Julian DiBiase, the field is wide open. For a team to be able to race, it needs a boat. And we're in the process of building the 11th, but we don't have much margin because it takes a lot of time and we're constantly supplying replacement parts when there are breakages. This means that if there were to be more candidate teams than boats, we would find ourselves, as with the cities, having to make trade-offs, meaning cuts. When we started in 2019, the first 6 teams had been financed by SailGP with the aim of selling them later. Today, of the 10, 4 still are owned by SailGP, at least in part, namely France, Canada, Spain, and the leaders, New Zealand. In fact, Pete Burling was asked in the press conference today, hey, you may be on the chopping block, you may win this, and then be on the chopping block because you don't have a team owner. Is that possible? Well, we'll see. They got an event in Auckland next year, so I doubt they're going to be on the chopping block even if there's no owner. They are actively seeking either sponsorship or 1 or more owners to take them over financially. This means that if 1 or 2 teams want to join the circuit and are fully funded, SailGP could allocate them the boat of one of the 4 in question. There's bound to be pressure on them, but at some point you have to cut the umbilical cord, Julian DiBiase said. Mm-hmm. They also went into some facts and figures about franchise values, about what it costs to host an event, yada, yada. And I commend Tip and Shaft to you just in general. Comes out every Friday. It's an email. It's free. Write to tipandshaft.com, I think it is, and add yourself to their subscription list. And then you can also, on their website, get the rest of this article. What's going on as far as the standings? Well, here is the season championship as racing. We go into racing tomorrow here in San Fran. The Kiwis, of course, are on top with 93. They're guaranteed through to the winner-take-all final Sunday afternoon. The 3 teams going into that will probably include the Australians, Tom Slingsby, and most people, including Nathan Outteridge, as you saw, think that Diego Botín and his Spanish equipo team will be the 3rd team, but Quentin Delapierre, Quentin is thinking that France, especially since it's going to be breeze on, as I teased in the cover slide for this, it's looking like 15 to 20 plus, both Saturday and Sunday afternoons when racing begins at 2:30 p.m. local. None of the others, Canada, Denmark, I think there's a mathematical, well, anybody could, for some reason, break the boats of the top 4. Teams could break their boats, they could break their boats, and somehow could put Canada, Denmark, and even Emirates GBR into the final, but highly unlikely. And I think you can forget about the U.S., Germany, and Switzerland at this stage. So that's all happening here in San Francisco, and here's the video.
And for the first time in SailGP history, the 1 second to go. Just get it back.
And that's racing right off here, off Marina Green, and off the Yacht Club Peninsula, as I call it, which is the strip of land between St. Francis Yacht Club down to Golden Gate Yacht Club, and the so-called Adrenaline Lounge, the SailGP's VIP tent, which has been up for a few days now, is right there between the 2 clubs on the Yacht Club Peninsula. I ran into a couple of people at the Marina Market yesterday who were clearly sailors. They had a vest on and topside, a husband and wife, and a Key West Mount Gay cap. They were clearly sailors.
Yeah.
And I had some kind of a sailing cap on, and hi, I'm Tom, and yada yada, my usual thing. And they were very friendly, and they'd come from Florida to watch SailGP.
Great.
Spending money locally, of course, staying in a hotel. They have tickets for the grandstand, I think, on one day, but not both days. And where could they watch? Because there's any chance they get into St. Francis. And I said, St. Francis is packed, forget it. Not going to happen. But just wander down to the Yacht Club Peninsula west of St. Francis Yacht Club, west of the Yacht Club, and sit on the breakwater. Mm-hmm. Dress warm, because this time of year it is cold, right, Julia?
Well, the breeze probably is.
Well, it's cold anyway, right here. I mean, this big bay area, it's been in the 100 degrees around the bay, and it's barely gotten above 72 here, right?
Yes.
Season 4 Grand Final here in San Francisco. Racing starts at 14:30 Pacific time, which is 17:30 in the East, 21:30 UTC, Saturday and Sunday afternoons here. Finally, as Rolex has become and is a sponsor of SailGP, one hears this morning Rolex is leaving Formula One.
Really?
They've been a sponsor, the official timekeeper and more, since 2013. One hears they are leaving, and that LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy's brand, they own a bunch of different brands. Tag Heuer the watch company, the timepiece company, is coming in, and that deal is worth $150 million U.S. What's Rolex been paying? Well, they started out in 2013 at $10 million U.S. per season. This year it was $50 million U.S. per season as the official timekeeper, Rolex. And now LVMH coming in with Tag Heuer, apparently it's going to be $150 million just for the official timepiece. Now, they're probably getting champagne, maybe Moet, maybe, one of their other brands. But one hears that is the case. And Julia, I think that can only be good for our beloved sport because Rolex does golf, they do tennis, they do yacht racing, and they prefer it when we call it yacht racing.
Yes.
And they sponsor the Big Boat Series over here at St. Francis. They sponsor New York Yacht Club's annual regatta next week. We're going to see that video in a sec. The TP52 Worlds and any number of other cool events. So I think it can only be good that Rolex is pulling their 50 mil annual spend. Well, it's more than that. It's probably double that. I think it can only be good. What do you think?
Yeah. Well,
good for our sport.
Yes, I think so too. Those numbers get out of control, though.
You think?
Yeah.
Jeff Ogle says, I don't get the popularity of that fund. Well, what has ramped up the popularity is this Drive to Survive TV show that they've got. Is that a Netflix series? Steve Gruber says, I suspect LVMH providing champagne is just a drop in the bucket. Yeah, they probably got some other things besides champagne, pouring rights, as we call it in the sports marketing business, and the official timekeeper, which is the big enchilada. Clark Chapin, as Mark Twain once said, the coldest winter I ever spent was August, and it was a summer in San Francisco. I'm not quite sure that is really true, Clark, that he said it, but somebody probably did say it, and it is true. When the wind pipes up here, Julia,
I know.
as it will be,
yes,
it's going to be breezy. It's going to be breeze on. This could be a bit of a demolition derby this weekend.
Within 40 miles, temperature is 102 in one spot and 72 in another, and it's within 40 miles.
Well, when you drive from your home up in Calistoga, which is up in wine country in Napa County, above the bridge and so on, what's it, about an hour and 15, 20-minute drive if there's no traffic? And it could be 100 up there in wine country, and you drive down and it gets cooler and cooler. You get to the bridge, go across the bridge, and it's 62 here in the marina.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. But you can do that across town, too.
Well, that's right. You can drive over to the east to Potrero Hill or the East Bay. And
it's 10 degrees every mile, sort of.
And that's what creates the wind here because, as you all know, the sea breeze doesn't blow. It actually sucks. Huh?
Yeah.
No finger wag, right?
No.
It actually sucks because the Central Valley, inland California, where one of the most productive agricultural areas in the world, where they grow all the vegetables and fruit, that routinely this time of year gets to be 110 degrees or so. The air rises, sucks the cool air in off the Pacific. The Pacific's only 55, maybe 60 degrees this time of year, and the air above it not much warmer. And it comes right in, almost as if it comes in through the Golden Gate Bridge.
You can see it come in.
And the fog brings the fog in. The foghorns have been going off here of late, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's been really Carl the Fog, as they call it locally. Nice handbags for the drivers, Hamish Ross. Clark Chapin, that seems emblematic of the health of F1 and the resulting financial competition and the relative lack of competition for sponsors for sailing, or yachting, if you prefer. Yarvahe says, remembering Bart when the breeze gets up in SF, yes, and that wasn't even a particularly breezy day, the day when Bart Simpson, when he sadly passed away. Have a great weekend, everyone. Jeff Ogle's leaving us at 20 after 2, our time. The Valley sucks. Blake Middleton used to coach down at Stanford, down in Silicon Valley. We're only a cool 85 at the top of the Rockies. Joe Holtzman up in Estes, Colorado. Clark Chapin says, yeah, it can be 86 degrees in Detroit, and as soon as you go across the bridge to Windsor, the temperature changes. It drops to 30 degrees, notwithstanding that Celsius.
Yes.
Notwithstanding, Clark's always got a good joke. Okay, special this day in history, as promised. I did get my dad live to tape. I'll play the whole thing. It's about 16 minutes long and really fills our segment for this day in history. And really, it's this summer, the summer of '62. He tells me is the summer when he conceived of and then started pushing this so-called 1080 rule, the three-circle rule. And he promised to go on the show last Friday, but as you know, we went yacht racing instead of doing a show when I was still back in Michigan. So I sat down with him on Monday, just before we left on Tuesday, got him live to tape for an interview because he is really deserves credit. Dick Rose and others have given him credit. Brian Willis in the UK, that is my dad, for the inventor of the 720 rule, what today we call the 720 rule, which he conceived as originally as the 1080 rule. This, in fact, is an article by Dick Rose in Sailing World magazine, the good racing publication, or what's the only remaining real sailing yacht racing publication in this country, from October of 2012, giving my dad credit up there in the corner for inventing the 1080 rule and then selling it to his club, to our club, Portage Yacht Club, and then eventually to the U.S. Yacht Racing Union, and then on to the IYRU, thanks to Dick Rose and Brian Willis and others. And here is that interview. We're here with my dad, Tommy Monsignor, at Portage Yacht Club on our 4th of July weekend, actually a Monday. Dad, you're going to tell us about how you developed the 1080 rule, which led to the 720 rule, and what was the year?
I believe it was 1962, 61, either 61 or 62. And it occurred to me that we were out there racing, and we spent a whole week waiting to get out there on Sunday. And then if you fouled somebody during the starting sequence, you were dead meat. You had to drop out of the race. That was the accepted practice at the time.
Including touching.
That was supposed to be the accepted practice.
Including touching the mark. If you hit a mark, you had to withdraw. Correct?
If you violated any rule, it was death. That was sudden death for the day, for the race, rather.
And did people obey the rules, or was that maybe not so?
Well, in our club, they followed the rules religiously, but when we went to off-lake regattas, we discovered that people were fouling, and then whoever they fouled heard the reply, "You owe me one," or the foul person said, "You owe me one," and then let them off the hook. And that didn't seem fair.
So you came to the idea of some kind of a temporary or a less severe penalty that kept people racing.
Well, the idea was to do something that took you out of the way of the person you fouled, so that you could still compete after you gave that person some sort of head start on having fouled them.
They could sail on in clear air, and you weren't in their way, so
right.
to speak.
And I came up with 3 circles because I knew that the established notion of sudden death was going to be hard to overcome. And so I tried to come up with something that I thought was reasonable, but would give everybody enough separation so that the fouled person could go on without having to compete with the person that fouled them for at least a while. If they got lucky and caught up, that was great. But the big thing was our club, like most other clubs at the time, were very resistant to changing the rules. They thought that was kind of a holy grail, and so it was a hard sell. So I talked about it for about 2 years in the club, and finally, when I became Commodore of the club in 1964, that gave me a chance to appoint the race committee, and I appointed people that were of similar notion, and I thought would be sympathetic to this thing, and they were. And so we started it out, and we tried it for that season, and then the next season, and then the next season, and the next season, and it worked just wonderfully.
Now, did you at the time have a provision for taking down a spinnaker, and you did fewer circles, or was it always a 1080?
No.
And you returned to the point of the foul, if I remember.
That was but you had to take it down and you had to put it back up again. Then you could do 2 circles, and that was the thing. And that sold it at our club to give it a try, and based on that, and in spite of the notion from the resistance that was just going to encourage cheating and sloppy sailing and people taking chances, that didn't turn out to be true.
So this is in the early to mid 60s. How did it get to Nehru, and how did it get to Europe ultimately for the rule to get changed from the 1080 rule to the 720 rule?
Well, at the time, somewhere in the middle 70s, a member of the club who happened to be one of my sons was working for whoever was
the original was USYRU.
Yeah, it was whoever came after Nehru.
You took it. I wasn't at USYRU till the late 70s, and the 720 rule was in place by then. And I was on the board as a youngster, but Jack Bartlett, who was a member and past Commodore and national champion at this club, and you were attending Nehru meetings in the mid 60s.
Well, I got the notion that anything came from the United States was going to be dead meat if it got to the IYRU, because it had to come from one of those other countries, and then there was a chance that it would get adopted. And I think I was a judge at the Laser Worlds, and I met
Dick Rose.
No, not Dick. The guy from Great Britain who was chairman, who was there.
The young guy, late great. I'll think of his name. Who's passed away? He was the head of the laser class at the time. Executive director.
No, he was a member of the Royal Yachting Association, and
Brian Willis.
Yeah, Brian Willis. That's who it was. Brian Willis.
So you met Brian at the laser somethings.
And he was also a judge there, and we were always talking about stuff after the race.
And become lifelong friends.
In our downtime, and we became good friends, and I voted pretty soon. I was visiting him in England, and we became good friends, and we exchanged some ideas, and so he thought it was a reasonable thing, and so he thought that maybe he could, he could influence the IORU to consider something like that. So finally, they put it in the appendix.
Which is a good approach.
As a possibility,
as an alternative
for people to try out and see if it worked locally for them.
Bill Benson and Scout Country were trying things at about the same time up in Minnesota, Wisconsin. Dick Rose wrote about it, I remember, in Sailing World, or whatever it was called then, One Design Yachtsman, about how you were pushing this rule. And he credits you widely with having developed what the rule, this 1080 rule, which led to the 720.
Yeah. Well, as resistance for the death penalty resided, then it was a little bit easier to start getting it back to the 720 rule from the 3-circle thing to the 2-circle thing. And
did you resist the 720 rule, or are you happy with that?
Oh no,
now?
I thought that the 3-circle thing was too much, but it was a selling point to begin with, to get somebody to even give it any consideration.
Oh, I see. I did not know that, having talked about this these many years. Okay, well, that's quite interesting. Anything else that you want to tell our Sailing Illustrated audience? I've been trying to get you on the show for years, and now we finally got my dad, Tom Sr., who's a past Commodore of the Yacht Club, a former national champion. In fact, my late great mother crewed for you in the Rebel Nationals, if I remember well, in 6? You were second in every race, is that right?
Yep.
Every race, a bridesmaid in every race.
Well, it was enough to win.
It was indeed. Okay, well, thanks for that. Anything else?
No, I guess that kind of covers it.
And you stopped racing now. You raced up until a year or so ago, and your knees?
Well, when I was 90, I was starting. It's really, I think it has something to do with my ears, but I was starting to become uncomfortable with my balance. And of course, when you're tacking, you're looking out ahead of the boat. You're not looking to see where your feet go, and I'd kind of stumble around, and old farts, when they fall down, there helps to break their hips, and so I'm letting go of the tiller to catch myself so I don't break my hips. And I thought, well, that's not fair because the boat's out of control now, and that's not fair to my crew person or to the other competitors to have some old fart out there screwing around trying to still live out a dream of some sort. So last year, after partway through the season, after I stumbled around a couple times, and in both cases I was ahead in the race at the time, but not after getting control of the tiller again. And so I thought, well, that was kind of deflating to my crew who was helping. I didn't think that was fair to him, so I just saw...
You packed it in a year and a half ago at age, 90, I guess. You're 91 now.
Yeah.
Well, just to give a little context to what's going on here, behind us is the Portage Yacht Club, which you bought the clubhouse and the facility in 1966. And the racing organization, previously known as Huron Portage Yacht Club, we merged those two together into the Portage Yacht Club. Huron, because it was
1994.
It was the Huron River on which Portage Lake sits, and there are several other Portage Lakes in Michigan, wherever the Indians got their canoes up to the lake and then portaged them across land.
Well, it's a French word, portage, which was to carry a canoe.
Exactly.
To carry something anyhow.
So here we are, but racing actually started here at the lake.
1953.
Property owners, your parents, lots of other folks, and your parents were born, give or take, 1900, and they were out here in the early 50s and decided they all had sailboats, or some of them had sailboats, to gather on the lake and start racing. And tell us about the guy that used to go out on the little paddle wheel thing to blow a duck horn if you were over the line early.
Well, when we started out, we didn't have a clubhouse. We were operating out of the front yards of one particular place, and we would set our one line out for one edge of the starting line, and then the other 2 or 3 marks would be set out, mostly in a triangle, so only 2 more were set out. And then the dock on shore with a flagpole on it, that was the other end of the starting line, and a guy would walk out on the end of that dock with a 16 gauge shotgun and shoot live shells into the air.
Live shells?
Live shells, yeah. And that was the starting signal. And we didn't have any shapes. We shot one up to 15 minutes before, and then everybody counted down, and then they shot one more at the start. And if there was a premature starter, a guy on one of those little pontoon things, it's a tricycle thing, he'd wheel out there and try to catch somebody and tell them they were over, tell them they were over early.
Well, how far things have come since 53. It'll be 75 years here in 2028. Are we going to have a 75th anniversary of the start of racing here at Portage Lake?
I don't know if we're even going to have sailboats here in 2028. We at the height of our program in the late 80s, we had 73 boats registered to race, and we averaged somewhere in the 60s on the starting line
on a given Sunday.
Over 5 classes. We had Rebels, and we had Flying Scots, and we had Interlakes, and we had Sunfish, and we were starting to get we were starting to get some lasers, but we had Fireballs too.
That's right.
And so we had all these fleets, but really what happened is the cell phone came along and it became available to kids, and they want to sit on the bench in the park with their thumbs playing with this thing, and they don't want to go out and learn how to do anything.
And the internet and soccer and a bunch of other sports, but
Well,
there are a few.
more sports cut into it a little bit, but mostly kids just wanted to sit and fool around with that fool phone. So as soon as they could get internet on it.
You don't do, when we're sitting at dinner here in the past week, you don't do that at all. You don't get on your phone and check social media, do you?
Never. I don't. I don't have. I see a Facebook thing, but I don't open it because I know that it's just a waste of time.
Well, here at the club, which has 97 moorings, slips, something like that, give or take, just short of 200, and that used to be virtually, other than race committee boats.
Yeah, we had 194 sailboats, and we had 2 boats for running the races. That was. We had a pontoon boat and a motorboat for the race management, and that was the extent of our program. And it went on and on and on and on.
All sailboats until when? When did the power boats start taking over? Because now the marina is virtually what? 90% power boats and 10% sailboats.
Yeah,
like
mostly
that?
pontoon boats. I'd say that in the early 90s, that's when it started going downhill.
Well, that's a trend. Across the sport, although we're starting to see some pickup here of late. I know they've got a record. Clark Chapin, who's been here forever sailing and a leader of this club, tells me that they have a record turnout for the Bayview, for the Detroit to Port Huron, Port Huron Mackinac race here in a couple weeks. And we're starting to see pickup in particularly in small boat racing, not only in this country, but perhaps across the world. So one can only hope.
Well, we can hope, but we don't have any young people coming into it, and it might be because it's unaffordable for young people to come into it.
Well, when you and Mom, in the 50s, I was 7, 8 years. The club was started the same year I was born, the racing part. But in the late 50s, early 60s, you had a house in town, you had a cottage here on the lake, you had by then 5 kids. By 63, you had 5 kids, and you had a sailboat or 2.
I was lucky. I was lucky. That's how you get to be 91. You get to be lucky. You got to choose your parents carefully, and you got to have a loving squeeze because guys are too dumb to take care of themselves.
Well, you do have a loving squeeze, and you have 5 loving kids, all of whom are still alive, and we've had a great 4th of July week with you here at the Portage Yacht Club. Thank you very much for doing this interview. Appreciate it. Oh, I never thought I'd get that on tape.
Oh, that's really lovely. And the comments are, everybody ought to get those memories.
Well, he was on a roll, and I didn't want to stop. I could have edited, I suppose, just the 7-10-80-7-20 rule. Tier de Jong, wow, great to meet your dad. The show. He still, at age, as you know, Julia, at age 90, works all day, every day. He runs the club. He owns it, manages it, and he's got a staff. He's got a kind of a house manager and some chef and some people that run they cut the grass and run the boat business. But he is fairly sharp. In fact, he's sharp as a tack, Chris, actually. Thank you. Julia, did you notice? He's wearing your headset.
Well,
your old headset with the mic. I took that.
Yes.
Because when I do the show remotely, I don't have enough hands to hold a mic and push the button. So I always take that and wear it myself, as I did for the show a couple weeks ago. And I put that on him. You know why?
He can hear better.
He can't hear. His one problem besides his balance is his hearing. So by putting that headset on him, he could hear himself and me perfect. But if we sit at dinner and he's got his hearing aids in and he can't tell the wheat from the chaff, he can't separate the noise, he does literally pull out his phone and starts farting around on his phone like any other millennial. He does. I was not kidding. Like any millennial, because he can't really tell what's going on in the conversation, and his mind is still going at 100 miles an hour, and he wants to be productive.
Yes, indeed.
He wants to be productive.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
Yeah. So, Mary Longpree, precious, great memories. This will become more and more precious to me, to you, and as the years go by. Yeah. The penalty system's roots are historic. Thank you, Stingray. Clark Chapin, bravo Zudi for managing to get him on tape. Interviewing him can be like interrogating a hostile witness. Yeah, Ellen Long, thank you. And that's true. That's why I did carry on, and we should have probably carried on some more, not for use in this show, but just about other local history and family history. And we should all do that with our elders.
I have 20 hours.
Oral history of your late great husband, Conrad. Clark Chapin, one last thing about the 1080 rule, 720. Clark Chapin told me when, he was my co-host, he filled your shoes, Julie, when we did the show.
And well, I might add.
He did a nice job, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
But he said that this 1080 rule, he reckons, Clark, has the most number of circles in the history of the sport, continuous circles. Apparently, under the 1080 rule, he fouled somebody at the starting line. He told me the story. I should get this on tape. He fouled somebody and did a 1080. And then in the process, fouled somebody else as he was coming out of his third circle. So he had to do 3 more. Now he's up to whatever that is, 1080, and that's 2160. So now he's done 6 circles. And as he's completing his 6th circle, the Boy Scout that Clark is.
Right.
It had taken him so long that the next fleet was starting 5 minutes later.
So he joined him.
No, he didn't join them. He fouled another guy in that fleet that had just started. Oh. So now he had to complete his 7th, 8th, and 9th circles. He reckons he holds the record for the most number of continuous circles in the history of our beloved sport, Clark Chapin.
It's fun. I like the thing of people saying they're going to take an Eamon now.
Take an Eamon, yeah. Well, that's hopefully it doesn't become a take an Eamon. Julia, you didn't like the beard.
No.
Huh? You didn't like that. Well, I'll tell you.
You look older than your father in that picture.
You think?
Yes.
You think?
Yes.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, you know how much I hate shaving. I've been shaving since I was 13 or 12 or 13, and I just hate it. So
get a new razor.
I did just for you this morning. Clark Chapin, finally, Clark has a copy of the 1973 NARU, North American Yacht Racing Union, the predecessor to USYRU, now, which of course is US Sailing, whose non-sailing CEO has got to go. I should have put that in here. And there is the appendix 3, including the 720 turns, and the big boat sailors had to have an alternative penalty as well, which was then known as the percentage penalty. So the big boats, because you don't want big boats doing 720s, let alone 1080s, or as Clark did, whatever the hell that was. So 9 circles in a big boat. So they had this percentage penalty, which is still in the book as well. So thanks, Clark, and thanks to especially to my dad, to Tom Sr., for all of that. Clark says he was dizzy.
Dizzy for a week.
Dizzy for a week after doing that. Blake Middleton, before I forget, back to Gov Cup, Dylan C's dad, Brady. Oh, Brady C. Is that? I know Brady C. Was on my team when I coached at Stanford. Yeah, it's a good sailing family then. Thank you for that, Blake Middleton. We have a quick America's Cup video. I really like this video, and it's very informative. I don't know if the Brits are going to do very well in the Cup, but Sir Ben Ainsley's team is doing some good videos, Ineos Britannia. And by way of our AC37 Cup date, they have submitted this video, which we run for you now.
The weight rules in the America's Cup are defined by the class rules and the measurement procedures. So the yacht needs to fall between 6,200 kilograms and 6,160. So there's a very small window for us to fall in mass. And with regards to centre of gravity, there's a very small window there also. We need to be at 9 meters or 9 meters 35. Everything that we have to weigh in order to meet the weight rule on this yacht is the platform, the hull of the boat, and the systems that we put inside of it, the foils, including the foil arms and wings, the masts and the sails, not forgetting the crew and the equipment that they carry. The design process starts with going through the rule and looking at all the one design components and the rules for weight that's dictated. From that, budgets are defined for the different areas of the yacht. The America's Cup have a measurement committee and they govern throughout the design process, and there are 3 documents that denote our rules and regulations that we have to adhere to. So there's the technical regulations, the class rule and the measurement procedures. And the measurement procedures basically tell us what needs to be measured, the metrics that we need to abide by and when it needs measuring. So throughout the design process, some of the rules may be up for interpretation, and there's a lot back and forth between the measurement committee and the different teams. And then as we get towards testing, we'll be weighing the boat fairly regularly to make sure we're going to hit our measurement target when we get to racing. And then throughout racing, yacht will be weighed quite frequently, and we'll have the measurement committee coming around all the teams, making sure that we're going through the measurement procedures and making sure we're hitting all the targets. Throughout the design process, I will be there tracking the data and also giving feedback on some of the designs, maybe looking to alter the architecture of the yacht to hit our values with center of gravity and mass. Their sailors have their own weight to manage, so they all have to fall under a certain mass, and if they don't hit their own targets, then we're constrained in crew configuration. The process for moving from design weight, which is calculated weight, to actual weights, it's quite difficult with composites. We initially start with our laminate calculations, then when the parts are made, there's quite a lot of overbuild to take into account with composites, but we weigh the part and we'll trim off, and we'll just literally have to follow the process through. The centre of gravity is an important one to us because there's obviously an optimum position. So getting the weight right is super important, not just for rule, but for performance. We're constantly looking at the design, trying to figure out ways to alter the architecture, mainly with the systems, and moving it around the yacht to try and hit our target. The systems that go into the yacht are initially calculated and positioned in software that we use, and once they are manufactured and they're bought in, they will be assembled to a certain stage and then they will be weighed before they go in the yacht. So it's quite important that we catch the build on time. Some of the crucial one design parts that we have to put on the yacht are the FTS, the foil arms and the media equipment for race. Each foil arm weighs in at around half a ton. Then we've got the media equipment, which is around 112 kilograms. And then we have the foil can system that weighs in at 343 kilograms, and that system sits in the center of the yacht and controls the foils themselves. Redundancy in the weight is super important. You may have seen in the last cup, American Magic managed to put a hole in their hull. Critical repairs like that will cost us a lot of weight. We need to prepare ourselves for all eventualities. The rules are so bold because they're really quite constraining regarding trying to get a 6-ton yacht into something that's fast, structurally sound, and something that's going to break history. It's incredibly challenging for everyone in the team, but the aim is to win the America's Cup.
Laura Davies is her name. I don't know her, but I have, in doing all these, 13 America's Cups, and when I was with the team as opposed to the organization, I, as the rules advisor, or one of the rules advisors, worked closely with what the team called, on the design team, the weight person. And it wasn't W-A-I-T, it was W-E-I-G-H-T, although you often had to wait for the weight, because this person had to be the most precise and the most, what's the word I want, picayune, because everything that went on and off the boat had to be known and weighed. And okay, there were some things where it didn't matter, but most everything did. And whether you, as you heard her describe, Laura Davies, she sounds very sharp.
Yeah.
Whether it was the media equipment or the sandwiches or whatever else, you had some idea, and she had, I'm sure she does, but our weight person had the most amazing spreadsheet of anybody on the team.
I remember people cutting their toothbrushes in half.
Well, that's for, around the world race to save weight. That's okay. I get it. Persnickety. Well, not persnickety, just very precise, Rick Bannerow. And she's obviously the weight lady, the weight person for that team. I agree with Mary Longpre. What the hell was that music? I tried. When I got that video, and I liked it, and I liked what Laura Davies was saying, I tried to EQ some of that music out. And there is a use for AI, Julia, is that sooner or later, and there's AI right now, there's good software that will take the background music, and this is for doing, or the voice, in fact,
right,
out of a song so that you can do karaoke to it, and the reverse. They'll take the music out and leave the voice. And we are going to employ some of that software on this show as soon as it becomes readily available and reasonably affordable.
Great.
Because that was awful. Steve Gruber, TFE, remember the Malmö pre-regatta? Yes, where there was more gravity and all the boats were 25 kilograms heavy. Yes, Steve, I do. And Steve, who's also a vet, we were up in Malmö, which is in the southwest corner of Sweden, right across from Copenhagen, right across that fantastic bridge tunnel. News broadcast ticker tape music, equally annoying. God, it was awful. And Hamish Ross saying, let's start a campaign to get cycling out of our sport, just as ridiculous as hoisting a sail in the Tour de France. I like that. Mm-hmm. In cycling, they're the weight weenies. Fritz Mueller is saying, what a smart bunch of people on here.
Yes, indeed.
A mass person. Amen. Clark Chafin. Just to wrap our America's Cup segment, we're an hour and 51 minutes into this show. You have to say, and I've now read most of his book, it gets more interesting, at least for a non-Brit, as it goes along. I didn't quite know what you were talking about because you got a head start on reading it, but all that stuff about British royalty in the first 3 chapters is a little much for me.
Yeah.
And for other people with whom I've spoken. But it really is fascinating, and the intertwinings. Is that a word?
Yes.
Is that the right word?
Of, yeah.
The combinations and permutations of people and families and the connections to and through the Cup in those early days on both sides of the Atlantic.
Yes, and it's still true.
Still true. You think? I don't know. Wait till I write my book.
I'm waiting.
Wait till I write my book. There'll be some other thing. This book is really good.
Oh, it is. It's spectacular, and he is, too.
You just have a thing for
British. I do. I'm sorry.
The British and the Aussies. Do you like Kiwis, too? Or is it just the Brits and the Aussies?
Well,
Admit it.
I'm sure I like
Admit it. You sit up there at night thinking about Magnus the Magnificent while you're reading his book. And why doesn't he come and give you a little cuddle in the Commodore's quarters?
I think not.
Okay. Jody Shields, my prediction for the weekend's racing with breeze up in San Fran. The Aussies will be the champs for the 4th time. Could well be, Jody. I would not bet against you because assuming Tom's boat holds together, that could well be the case. And also, you can't count out the French because they have been good. If there is ever an element where the French have done well, Julie, you would agree, it's been in the breeze.
Absolutely.
And it is going to be breezy. It's that time of year here in San Francisco. But save yourselves all a bit of I thought I had a transition and I realized it was Crutonic. Save yourself all a bit of breeze and get Magnus's book. And that doesn't work.
No.
That was Crutonic. It's a great book. Get it. It's sold wherever better books are sold, including Amazon and the bookstores in Cowes and probably in Barcelona at the America's Cup official store. Julie, we got one more video. We'll do the last leg. We dedicate this leg to Morris Stevens because this was Gloucester up there in Nova Scotia, I think, is where this painting was done. Even was done by an American. This coming Monday is this part 2 of the TP52 racing going on in Newport, Rhode Island. And the New York Yacht Club's Race Week, as they call it, starts on Monday, and the TP52s are using that for their 52 World Championship starting on Monday. And here is a fabulous video. I still got the Bermuda Race logo up in the corner of that. I better take that away. But they're being hosted by, of course, New York Yacht Club's Harbor Court. We talk about how fantastic it is. And here is a preview by Rolex of this 52 World Championship.
See how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember.
Quantum Racing, a spec at the top of the world. Rolex TP52 World Champion.
They win the World Championship title for the 3rd time on the final run.
Let's see how you do under pressure. pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever.
Yeah, the music, Rick Bannerow. I don't think that was correct either, Julia. Why don't they take a lead from us and use some nice jazz?
Yeah.
Like for our lead in and our, we got a little bit of steel drum music at the end of this show, because that's just more like what sailing should all be about, not some heavy bass rap
drama
shouting at you. Impressive musical take on Bach, Stingray is saying. That gets us to the D block here after that little special bit at the New York Yacht Club. You never thought you'd see that out of Rolex in the New York Yacht Club and even the 52s. And I agree with Clay Embley. It's the best monohull racing going right now on the planet. Julia, I have one of each.
Okay.
I've got a drinking one. I've got a, well, it's not even really sexual. The band Rage Against, speaking of all this musical stuff, how was that for a segue?
Yeah.
The band Rage Against the Machine were never specific about what kind of machinery they were furious with, but from personal experience, I assume it was a sailboat's diesel engine. Graham Sweeney, rap with a capital C. I think he means crap. That was sent in by none other than Clark Chapin. You would think an auto engineer and a fuel specialist like Clark would not have any problem fixing a sailboat's diesel engine. Gruber loves the Rage. He loves that band, the Rage Against the Machine. I got a whiskey one in here. I didn't know tomorrow is, in fact, it is down under now, World Rum Day. I'm sure Jody will lead the way. I wish Jody was doing the commentary for Sail. Oh, that was the other thing I should tell you.
Yes.
This couple that I ran into that's up here from Florida, elderly couple. I mean, elderly, meaning they're kind of my age.
Our age.
Yeah, they're our age, 70-ish. And they said, are you a commentator? I said, no, I've done commentary over at St. Francis, and I do this silly sailboat show here, the podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm not involved. They said, oh, God, that is so awful. The Sail GP commentary, the woman is good, meaning Lisa Darmanin.
Yeah.
The guy, though, who's the Brit? I said, well, not Todd Harris. You mean the Stevie, what's his name? They were complaining about him, and they'd never heard me rant or anybody else here on our show rant about that commentary. Awful. Whiskey probably won't fix your problems, but it's worth a shot.
Yay.
Julia, that fixed your problem this morning.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
We put a shot in your coffee after your
miserable morning.
Your Uber didn't show up for your doctor's appointment. Well, that can be rescheduled. Finally, this has become an ongoing theme. I got tired of all the bagpipe jokes. Hamish Ross, we dedicate this to you as the good Scot that you are, and this came from, yet again, from the esteemed Vice Commodore of the New York Yacht Club, Claire Harrington.
She knows all about that.
And while I was on vacay, I did get into some texting back and forth about music with Claire, and she not only was the organist at St. George's School and the musical director at St. George's, which is the Tony Prep School in Middletown, right there next to Newport, Rhode Island.
Right.
She was for many years, but she started challenging me on music, and I got the guitar. We played a couple of riffs back.
Neat.
Oh yeah, she is really, really good as a musician. I mean, she's a good race officer. I'm sure they're having their big meetings right now at New York Yacht Club, their executive committee, and then their board meeting in advance of racing this weekend. The more I find out about her, the more I like her.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to serve New York and our sport very well.
Absolutely.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
This guy is not serving our sport well, and the sooner we get rid of him, the non-sailing CEO at U.S. Sailing, he's got to go. One hears he is going. They're going to let him have his time in the sun for the Olympics, and then he's out of here, I hope. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Hit your, what's that expression? Your behind, your backside,
Yeah.
your bum,
Yeah.
your ass. Okay. Everyone take an Eamon. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Freddie Mercury and Queen. How did we get into Freddie Mercury and Queen? They're not talking about Rhapsody in Blue. They're talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, no doubt. The non-sailing CEO has got to go. So have a drink. Have a great weekend wherever in the world you are. We're to the finish line. Julia, your witness.
Yes. As always, is take the opportunity to like, follow, and share, and look at who you're sharing to and expand that.
Indeed. And share this show as well, if you don't mind, to your own pages. Comments are welcome, even in replay. We're one of the few shows that leave them open. We're one of the few shows that are live. I mean, it's easy to do YouTube videos, Julia. I mean, with respect.
Yeah.
But to sit here and do a live show to a week, I can't even talk anymore, week after week after, at our advanced age, huh?
Yes.
I think the AARP should celebrate us.
Well,
American Association for Retired People. We're not retired. You're on your third career, Julia.
I know.
And Clark Chapin has already done all three. Thanks, Ed. And thanks to all of you for your support. As we always like to say, join us via, become a patron, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thanks to those who let us use, they don't even know, most of them that we use their audio video. Most of them probably do know. Actually, I write for permission. I'm pretty,
yeah.
What's the word? I'm pretty assiduous. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it could be.
About checking. Don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you. Morris Stevens.
Yeah, that's a good one there.
Let him do that. Let him get out of here, and don't let the door hit you or the good Lord split you. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday, the Lord and the internet willing. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao. For now. Julia, you can give him a wave, too. A queenly wave. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.